Headlines on RT International. An EgyptAir flight en route from Alexandria to Cairo is hijacked and diverted to Cyprus. More than 24 hours after a huge breakthrough against ISIL in Syria, with the retaking for the ancient city of Palmyra, Washington acknowledges the military success but does draw short of praising President Assad's achievement. Migrants on the Greek-Macedonian border demand the crossing is opened as thousands remain stranded in that area. Thanks for joining us here on RT International. We come to you live from Moscow with further updates on what's been a breaking news story for the past 3 hours now. An EgyptAir flight en route from Alexandria to Cairo hijacked and diverted to Cyprus. The plane's pilot was threatened by a passenger claiming to have a suicide belt, although it later emerged there were no explosives on board. We can show you some of the latest pictures from right here, from just outside the Larnaca International Airport. The police presence is there. You can't see too much in the pictures here. It's all in a state of lockdown, although with the police in attendance, it does seem pretty calm. Now, the president of Cyprus has reportedly said the hijacker is not a terrorist, but is driven by personal motivations, and that it's all to do with a woman. I'm now joined in the studio with RT's Murad Gazdiev to offer some insight on what is, I suppose, a rapidly changing story, Murad. You know, for the past 3 or 4 hours now, we've been talking terrorism, hijacking of a passenger A320 Airbus. Turns out he was suffering from a broken heart, potentially.
Well, the Cypriot president says this man is, he's not a terrorist, he's an idiot. You know, judging by his demands, well, he apparently was motivated by love. He wanted to hand his perhaps estranged wife or girlfriend, it isn't clear at this point, a 4-page letter. She was apparently taken to the airport so he could talk to her and give her this letter. He hijacked a plane, claiming he had a suicide vest to give his love, a woman, a letter. Doesn't sound too smart, and you know, I'm no Casanova, but seems pretty pathetic as well.
All right, Murad Gazdiev, stick around. We'll talk to you in just a moment. Thanks for that. All right, let's get some more reaction now. I'm joined live by Captain Richard Woodward, the former Vice President of the Australian and International Pilots Association, coming on the programme now. Great to see you today. Being a captain yourself, how would you have reacted in a similar situation if a man alleging to have a suicide bomb belt approached your cockpit, demanding you to release control of the plane and fly to a different airport? Your reaction would be?
Oh, my reaction would be very similar to the captain of the EgyptAir aircraft. You've got to get the aircraft on the ground as soon as you can, because the authorities cannot help you when you're in the air. The bulletproof door of the aircraft is just that. It's bulletproof, but the aircraft won't contain an explosion. I would have been very surprised if the man had explosives as well, given the modern search techniques at airports. But the prime requirement is get the aircraft on the ground, get it somewhere where the authorities can actually help you.
Captain Woodward, if somebody simply claims they have a suicide belt, do you have any other choice as a pilot but to believe them?
Oh, we've got procedures in place to actually try and determine the nature and characteristic of what they're threatening us with. The cabin crew are trained to assess the individuals and what they potentially got as a weapon, and relay that information to us in the flight deck so that we can make a valid judgment. We can also, depending on the length of flight, get access to company and security people on satellite phones or just through the radio, and we can potentially search down what they're likely to have and what threat it is to the aircraft.
Now, Captain Woodward, we understand there was at least one EgyptAir security member on board this passenger plane. We don't understand of any of his actions, if indeed he did try to, well, commandeer and take over to try and overpower, perhaps, the potential hijacker. What is the job of the on-flight, in-flight security member in a situation like this?
Well, I can't comment on EgyptAir in particular, where that crew member was, but if they were down the back end of the aircraft and the person was up the front, you'd have to be very fast to react. But the general duty of a air marshal, as they're called, or someone, is to protect the cockpit at all costs. So if a person makes a threat to the aircraft and tries to advance and get into the cockpit door, if they're an officer of the police, they will actually defend the aircraft, including up to lethal force, to stop the person.
Now, it certainly seems it did have all the hallmarks earlier as we were broadcasting this breaking news for the past few hours. It had the hallmarks of a potential act of terror, a potential hijacking there with explosives being discussed. But it would seem that this is now a state of the Egyptian national Ibrahim Samara having a broken heart and wanting to deliver a 4-page letter to his ex-wife on the island of Cyprus there. So at the end of the day, Captain Woodward, do you think security in the airlines and the airports is actually up to par, if indeed today's was just a bit of a wild goose chase, perhaps?
Oh, I think that we're learning very fast. The hijackers or terrorist threat is quite mobile. They're very savvy with technology these days, and they actually try and penetrate the security systems regularly, I would think. But there's a strong indication that the terrorists of the world these days would rather blow an airliner up in quite a spectacular manner, because that makes more headlines than a lovesick individual trying to get back with his wife.
All right, Captain Richard Woodward, the former Vice President of the Australian and International Pilots Association, thank you for joining us on RT International.
No problem.